Welcome back to my three-part series on critical pedagogy and liberation theology. We now conclude our series by moving from theological reflection to methodological implementation. In my first video, we established the magisterium's position, affirming the core mission of liberation while simultaneously demanding a necessary purification from anthropological reductionism. In the second video, we situated liberation within the shared praxis of Freire and Gutierrez, culminating in the Christ-centered vision of integral human salvation, a saving work that fully embraces the socio-political, human, and theological dimensions of life. Our focus now is the practical framework for reclaiming the Catholic roots of critical pedagogy. Critical pedagogy is powerful, even indispensable as a methodology for identifying structural sin. However, its secular appropriation risks reducing the student to a purely political or economic object, thereby denying the integral human dignity that Catholic anthropology demands. This problem is the anthropological reductionism the CDF warned against. Therefore, the vocation of the Catholic educator requires us to apply this critical methodology only under the non-negotiable theological constraint that every student is whole and complete, made in the image and likeness of God. The work of reclaiming critical pedagogy is realized through three essential integrated acts of the discerning Catholic teacher: reclaiming the agent, reclaiming the analysis, and reclaiming the vocation. The political work for justice and liberation is fundamentally preceded by the spiritual work of personal conversion. The critique of society must begin with the critique of the self. The theological foundation for this act is the Church's mandate for continual conversion. To avoid reproducing the errors of reductionism in our own pedagogy, the teacher must be grounded in an authentic vision of the person. This demands the teacher defend human dignity in the person in her totality by drawing directly from the teachings of Vatican II on the human person. The necessarily internal critique begins in what Gaudium et Spes calls the sanctuary of the self, the place where, quote, he is alone with God, whose voice echoes in his depths. This interior conversion then drives the outward action to honor the human dignity of others, fulfilling the core mandate of Gaudium et Spes, that the human person, quote, cannot fully find himself except through a sincere gift of himself. This combined conciliar vision of the self is the ultimate theological mandate of the teacher. With this theological foundation firmly established, we can then employ practical mechanisms for the work. In my own work, and for the professional formation of teachers I've supervised, I found a powerful tool in the scholarship of Dr. Yolanda Seeley Ruiz, a professor from Teachers College at Columbia University. I was privileged to work with her on staff development centered on her concept of the archaeology of the self. This archaeology is the necessary work of excavating one's own identity, examining the sediment of biases, assumptions, and life experiences that shape how we view our students and why we teach the way we do. We utilize this rigorous work not as a philosophical foundation for our faith, but as a concrete, anthropologically sound tool, accessible through our human nature as self-reflective beings. This natural capacity for self-reflection serves the personal conversion required for true justice, illustrating perfectly how grace can build upon and perfect our natural foundations. This formation ensures the teacher committed to integral human dignity can foster genuine agency and responsible freedom among his students. As Dignitatis Humanae teaches, it is on account of their dignity that all people, inasmuch as they are beings, quote, endowed with reason and free will, are both impelled by nature and bound by a moral obligation to seek the truth. Further, they are, quote, bound to adhere to the truth once it is known and to order their whole lives in accord with the demands of truth. This means the teacher, through their human nature, is capable of wielding critical analysis without succumbing to any particular ideology. Our engagement with critical theory is not a compromise with heterodoxy. It is an act of Orthodox Catholic discernment, rooted in the tradition. This method adopts the classic Christian principle of discernment, much like St. Augustine purified Greek philosophy for Christian use, to systematically separate useful diagnostic tools from ideological error. This intellectual exercise is necessary to perform the purification demanded by the CDF. The analytic rule of engagement is the Thomistic maxim: grace does not destroy nature, but perfects it. We employ this as our unyielding filter. We utilize critical theories as the necessary diagnostic tools to identify structural sin. This is the critique we embrace. But we must absolutely reject when they prescribe solutions that deny the integral human dignity of the person, or treat the person as an object to be saved. This is the ideology we must avoid. In Chris Emdin's book, Ratchetdemic, we see a successful modern validation of this filter. His method accurately identifies academic structures that devalue and silence students' lived experiences. And his remedy, a deep commitment to cultural relevance and genuine dialogue, is a methodological act of solidarity that affirms the student's integral identity. This is nature perfected by grace in a classroom setting. The purification of the methodology finds its ultimate expression in the public witness of the Catholic teacher's vocation. As lay people, our public witness is primarily enacted through the integrity of our pedagogical method, not through preaching explicit doctrine. This truth is affirmed by St. John Paul II in Christi Fidelis Laici, which states, quote, every activity, every situation, every precise responsibility, as for example, the education of children, are the occasions ordained by Providence for a continuous exercise of faith, hope, and charity. Our classroom practice, our teaching, must become a living reflection of gospel values. We must reject the banking concept of education that dehumanizes students and denies their integral human dignity. We must instead work toward a true practice of dialogue and help our students to engage in praxis so their learning can lead to transformative action. The final objective, then, is to transform the learning space. Our classroom must become a community of solidarity. At its core, the teacher who has themselves done the work of personal conversion turns outwards to their students, who are empowered towards their own conversion, and who then turn outward to their classmates and the world beyond the classroom. The classroom becomes a micro model of a civilization of love, where social equity and mutual reliance cooperate with grace toward the integral salvation we defined in the second video. The whole person salvation that fully engages both the spiritual and material dimensions of human existence. Critical pedagogy, once reclaimed and purified through these three acts: purification of the agent, reclaiming the analysis, and reclaiming our vocation, is revealed to be a demanding yet joyful methodology of discipleship. The Catholic teacher is called to be courageously discerning, fearless in critique of structural injustice, yet absolutely anchored in love and the unwavering commitment to integral human dignity. This mission demonstrates that the most authentic, liberating, and academically rigorous pedagogy is not only fully human, but fully Catholic critical pedagogy.